And let's see if we can get this stuff going live here. Go live. You there, Facebook? Here's YouTube. How we doing? Are we streaming? It says we are. I don't know. I don't see anything happening there. Are we streaming? I'm going to put on our... Okie doke. All right, double portrait here. It's going to take a while. Yes, we're live. Good morning, good afternoon. And the last thing that we always do here is try to shift the Swift over to Facebook groups, the Portrait Painters group. Okay? How's it gonna go? What's it gonna be? Portrait Painters. Share now. All right, let's give this a shot. So we'll kick off from a distance, and we'll see what we can do. So, as always, we've got a decent, well, not as always, but this time we have a pretty decent lighting scenario. I did have to edit out some of the text. There was text, and I had to get that removed, but I didn't want to get rid of too much of the hair, and so. But we're also trying to go for a little more broad breadth of focus. So that means it's hard to have breadth of focus when you're working from a photograph that's like, perfectly whatever, photographed in high def. But we're going to do what we can. Let's, I think actually today, it's hard to say whether we should start with Kitty Cat or Taylor. I'm thinking about the time lapse. Hang on. Speaking of which, I'm going to check out the time lapse. Yeah, I don't know. I think today we're going to Laranimi. Thanks for the follow. Welcome if you're joining or popping in for the first time. This is kind of an unusual one. It's a special request from my niece. And great fun photo. And we're going to just do some digital painting of Taylor Swift. And if anyone knows the name of her cat, that might be helpful as we discuss. I don't know Taylor Swift so as well as some of the other subjects, but I do like some of the music, and I too am a cat person. So let's go. I think we're going to kick it off with our I don't know, what should we do? Should we do Kitty Cat? No, let's start with Taylor. So, as we always do, we get our darkest darks. How do we do that? Well, the darkest dark is going to be either the iris. Iris, is that right? Well, we've already got that, so forget that for now. Let's get our darkest dark, which is going to be our red of the nostril. And then we make sure we have our layers. We're on our paint layer. Okay, so pretty easy to, when you get your darkest dark, you just put it down. No problem. That's your nostril. And then over here, we can basically, you know what's really interesting? That look at how dark, look at how bright actually the red is. You see that in a lot of the old master paintings. Well, maybe not old yeah. The nostrils look so dark, but they do a really good job of making them, what's the word? There's a lot of warmth in those shadows. So that's something to think about when you're painting shadows. So moving along, we've got a darkest dark in the hair. We can frame the face with that. I don't know if we need to go too detailed right now. We're just putting in a frame, basically, just a way to contain the head, even if it doesn't, even if it's not so in nature. We have a little line there. Here's our, this is tough. Yeah, let's really get that. We're never really gonna, we're gonna try not to zoom in this far here. But because here, the thing is, this is not just a portrait. Like, this is really a full length, 3/4 length portrait. And that is hard to pull off in digital. I mean, it's, for me, you could see that the head and shoulders portraits take me like 3 days. This one's going to take a while because A, we've got animals. B, we've got full body. You know, there's some good things working for us and some bad things working for us. The hair is just going to be a total chaotic tangle. But we'll work on it. All right. To that end, let's just get the outline of the hair. And zooming out, we'll see that we have, the tendency, for me anyway, is like to be delicate and not as brushy. But I think, if I'm doing, if you're painting somebody like Keith Morrison, there's like there's opportunity to go edgy and bold with all the wrinkles and stuff. But we got a young face here. There's not a lot of opportunity to be brushy and bold, at least from my perspective. So I think I'm going to try to keep things polished in the head, but the hair can be a little wild. And then kitty cat, good luck. I'm not a painter of animals particularly, but as I always say, if you know how to draw, you know how to paint. So we'll do our best. Okay, what else is new? Let me see if we can get our, it's been a long weekend, so I'm trying to, all right, I got chat back open. I wanted to see if maybe our new pal, Lara, was out there. If you have any questions, or from time to time I'll pose a question and see if we can get the chat going. But for now I'm just getting situated after a long weekend away from the virtual easel. Okay, so here we'll get the color there. I love how the color in this photo is cool. Everything's very cool, which I like, temperature-wise. And so even this shadow has a greeniness to it that I really like. Okay, so speaking of shadows, that's all we're doing right now. We're getting our darkest darks, and we're hopefully going to keep things simple. I mean, it's a very simple pose. It's not... I had a few photos to choose from in this Time magazine shoot, and ultimately I decided to go with this less complex one because I don't know why. The other ones had a tilt of the head. They didn't have the cat, but in some ways that's better. Okay, so we've got we're going to get our darkest dark. Darkest dark in the eyelash is definitely going to go there. I noticed in the little, what's it called? In my underdrawing here, or under tracing, it looked more like in the country era, like the teenage Taylor era, somewhat. But I think that's because we don't see her cheekbones, which have sort of become accentuated, I would say, over the years. So we're going to get those all that shadow will come in and start to give us the contemporary era likeness that we're more familiar with, or at least that we come to think of Taylor as now. All right, here's a shadow. Let's get that shadow edge in here. Very interesting now, again, that there are dark our darkest darks here are actually it's only slightly darker than the background I've used. For the first time, I'm using a different color for the, and forgive me, in the beginning I sample a lot of my colors from the photo, just so that I have like the basics, darkest dark to lightest light. Here's a medium value. And we're just gonna, why don't we knock in these darks of the eyes just to get them on our layer up here. Interesting thing that I'm noticing a little bit about painting in this kind of very small scale. Sorry, so I'm just going to squint down, keep things going. Again, shadows along the edge. Part of this is that no doubt there's kind of a makeup foundation going on here, and that reflects light in a way that's not just not the same as when there's light reflecting off unmade up skin. Now, depends. It's not like we haven't handled that before with other subjects, but I see this as not letting a lot of the light through to bounce off the skin, so the color is sort of like, I don't know, it's muted. It's not it's like the shadow line, the shadow edge is muted somewhat. But okay, so making our way along, we can I like to make sure we blur that edge early on, because sometimes I don't want to have to go back in there and clean that up later. So we're going to get when I say shadows, we'll find our shadows. Look at this shadow. That shadow color is totally different from shadow colors elsewhere. It's the dark red shadow cast off of her lipstick, and that's going to be a color that we may want to refer to when we're, developing the teeth or developing the lips further. So what I'm trying to do again, if you're just joining, is trying to just sample colors at this point and get the palette moving somewhat. So here's a nice half tone. We can plop that in. All right, the eyebrow, you kind of got to get a basic value for the eyebrow, because you get, you'll go from dark to light real quick there. We're starting our foray into half tones, which are reading as highlights, because we're starting on a canvas which is relatively dark. So any middle values that we put down there are going to show as lights. Okay. Values. What do we need here? We need some more of this shadow edge. Did I carry this shadow all the way under and through? No, but let's do it now. And feel free to chime in with your favorite era if you want to discuss some of the music. I don't know when I sort of first seriously listened to any Taylor. I think it was the 1989 album. I studied one of the songs, and I also really enjoyed the hit single I Knew You, Trouble is it called? Trouble. I like that song. I like Blank Space. And I like some of the new album, but I'm not really studied up on the various I don't know the catalog extremely well, but that's okay. We don't need to necessarily even know the subject, who the subject is. Let's get our dark values in the eyebrow. Yeah, see that? This is interesting. I think in this case, I used too dark of a value for the canvas. I'm not sure, but I think that may be the case. I'm going to grab a I knew you were trouble. So here, there's going to be highlights always. And then our job is to sort of measure with our eyes where those highlights begin and where they end. And if you just gently place them in, you can leave them there for a bit. Highlight on the lips. Hold on a moment. Got a lot of activity here during the postseason baseball. Got a lot of discussion on my text thread. I should turn off my phone when I paint, but sometimes I don't want to miss a thing, you know. Okay, here we go. Let's find out where our... So here, if you zoom out like this, I really love, even though there is a bit of makeup sort of obscuring this stuff, the highlights on the bone structure here are going to be really interesting and really need to be precise. Let's take a look. So here I'm just trying to sweep in some of those highlights. There's another one. Okay. Again, at this stage, glorified paint by numbers. I'm not claiming it's anything else. And we have to decide what our we have to decide where those numbers land. So here, to that end, we get another middle value here. So we're always flipping our eye back and forth between subject and artwork. And I think as the baseball season progresses into the postseason, I think it's going to be time to get some athletes up here. But one thing I've noticed about photos of reference photos of athletes, if anything, I've noticed they're taken outdoors, often in direct sunlight or bathed in light. You know, how often are these guys in a studio shoot situation? Probably often, but it's not as easy. This is looking a little more like pastel, which I like. I like that idea. It's more like a drawing at this stage. Okay, so let's find our broad focus here. I mean our edge. Shadow edge. And we'll get our darkest dark under the chin, under the jawline. Here's a nice sort of vaguely shadowy edge. All right. What did we do last time? I think what we did last time was we found our edge. I mean, we found our iris color, brought it around and down, and then we can do the same on the left eye. Again, we're just finding now our darkest darks, and this is yet, you can see this is it almost looks black in our painting, but it's really quite blue. And when I do the eyes, I tend to use tiny brushes and zoom in tight, just because it's better to do that than make it a mess. Okay. Okay, so moving up the bridge of the nose here, we're going to pop in some highlights here. We can even carry those down a little bit. You see they're the same, really, as the ones under here. So here, again, highlight under the bags of the eyes here. Okay. We get a little highlight over the tear duct. We're not... things are, at this point you're just throwing things at the wall here. You're trying to get that gray of the canvas covered. And that sometimes means just finding basic shapes that cover an area. All right, squinting down. Again, we always find ourselves, I think, on this channel getting into situations where there's a lot of detail. Like, look at all the detail in the hair, and yes, it's intimidating, but the more we can look at the big picture and not get lost in those kinds of details, the better. So let's try and do that. Okay. Now, I think the last thing we'll try to do here in the eyes is find, there's a nice blue. With these tiny, tiny brushes, honestly, it's hard. But once we kind of carve out the face, then I think we're going to find we can sort of relax somewhat. And by that I mean really chisel away at the shadows and lights in the head, get the likeness squared away. For a number of reasons, I tend to paint more the male physiognomy. I think when I was growing up learning to paint, you're sort of drawing your friends and hanging out with the guys, whatever, doing sketches of friends. And then in art school, it sort of was like I don't know, maybe it was like there were more male models at the school, but I've certainly painted more male heads than female heads, so you'll see, like I did Andrea Canning, and I just wasn't pleased with how that one came out. It's tricky. Like, I'm very used to painting. I'm more used to painting people sitting in natural light. And sometimes when it's like a more produced photo shoot, you get the light bouncing off makeup or things like that, and that makes it a little harder to get a convincing look when you're mostly used to painting in natural light. This is definitely like a produced photo shoot, and makeup can be a challenge. Not to mention that cat. We'll deal with him or her at another time. Okay, so definitely looking like the kind of early Swift era in my painting. Okay. Not looking like the T Swift we know yet. Let's get the inside of the tear duct here. Find out where that is. You notice how the what's that part of the eye called? I've forgotten. The cornea. The way it's a light, almost like a blue. All right. Really just filling in things here. Let's use this as our... Whoops. No. Bring that in. Where are we at with our... I'm just looking at our stream here to make sure that everything is up to scratch. Okay. You'll see. Well, little by little. Why don't we grab the top of the hair here, get that color going. Yeah, that was a little something like that. And we can find our curly cues in the hair. I mean, this may open us up to some musical icons for the next portraits, which is a good thing. There's no doubt painting musicians and rock stars is going to be fun. But it's almost like who don't you paint? I mean, there's lots of choices. Probably do like the And Justice for All era Metallica guys. Maybe the Black Album is a little more iconic, but I've seen some really cool photos from the Justice era, which I'll want to get going at some point. All right, so here's our shadow edge. And if at any time anybody has any special requests, I should also say I will put in a link for, at some point I'm going to put in a commissions link, because I do, after a while, I may say to myself, it's not the, I don't get, I wouldn't say that, let's see, how do I put this? I do work, before I started doing this digital painting thing, and streaming the paintings, the only time I would really paint would be on a commission basis. And it would be like, a big undertaking. Usually it would take me a month at least to paint a portrait. And that's partly because things have to dry, between layers, and just like, I don't know, like, because there was the only audience is that singular person, family that is commissioned the portrait. I honestly find it, for some reason it was like, I've got this one portrait. It's almost like, let's do this right and savor it and not just rush through. But that's a slippery slope, because I don't know. It's like finishing any kind of big project. It's hard to know when to stop. But doing the digital thing has really helped me sort of loosen up and try to get it done more quickly, because I really want it. I want to move on to the next one, like I'm already talking about painting Metallica, I'm like, whereas with portraits, like, you sort of don't, I don't have like 5 portraits commissions, like, I'm just not that prolific. I'm not the best salesperson in the world, and I don't have a lot of, those portrait commissions are few and far between. So anyway, this has just been a really good way to paint things that I'm interested in painting, and to do so whenever I want. It's like, I don't need a reason to go into the studio and paint. I just want to paint whoever. And then my niece suggested I paint Taylor Swift, big Swiftie. And so that's today's portrait. And that'll probably be this week, because it's going to take a long time to do this one. Okay, but yeah, any requests, any commissions, I do work on commission, and we can, DM about the details. I work in oil, I work in charcoals, even pencil. I've done some watercolor. I painted a watercolor cat portrait in the past. It was fun. Okay. Are we ready? We are. I'm going to really start to hammer in this bone structure so that we can see more or less the structure. How about the kitty cat? Does anybody know the name? I'm sure she has many cats, and maybe this is a beloved one. I also wondered if maybe the portrait photograph was taken at her home. Hence, perhaps, the ability to say, oh, why don't I get Foo-Foo into the mix here without having to startle her or get her in a cage and bring her. So, who knows? I'm not I do produce photo shoots when I'm doing a portrait commission, because usually I work from a photo which I shoot in my studio. That's the ideal situation, is you have the person come to the studio, because I like to paint. I like to shoot the photo in natural light. It's just the way I like my paintings to look. And when I am painting from photos, I always want them to look as close to natural light setting as possible, and that's maybe where this one came in. I liked the lighting. So and let's get a highlight here on find our highlight color. And kitty cat. Adorable they may be, but you'll see. Respond to the call. All right, corner of the lip here. Very important is the smile mark. Okay. Plop it in. And then we need to carve in yet again with our darkest darks. Sparks, bunny, super kitties. Yeah, so little by little, we're going to see the likeness come out of the mist here. Let's make sure, by the way, that when we are painting highlights, that we know where they come from. So here's not really a highlight, but this is a I don't know. This is a middle value, a lighter value. And we'll see, little by little, we'll get there. There's our edge. And so you see this, here's the shadow, and then the reflected light falls right to the right of it. And we can find our darker edges. No, we can't, can we? Respond to the call. Okay. So pretty simple nose structures here, but so important for the likeness. I think people don't necessarily know how important the nose is for the likeness. It's hugely important. You'd think, oh, I got her eyes, but everything sort of, in fact, when I was learning to paint, and as I continue to learn to paint, the nose, as my teacher used to say, is like the handle. Because when you turn the head, if you say, Taylor, please, can you slightly turn your head to the right? The length of the nose stays the same. Unless you're going up like this, then the nose gets shorter. But basically, if they're in a comfortable position like this, the length of the nose stays the same whether you're going left, right. Okay, so you're coming back to check the length of the nose all the time. And so in that way, it's kind of everything else should be built around that, because you can consistently come back to that nose to find the lengths. You can find where everything else peels off from the nose. So, and it's harder to see that when you're painting from a photo, but maybe we can show somehow. Okay. Okay, we're going to fill in our shadowy edge. Look at this. I find this quite interesting about Taylor's face here, is the eyebrow there. Really, I don't know. It's got that bony ridge of the eyebrow there is very much a telltale Taylor something. Let's see if we can get our Oh my gosh, I just botched that up. And we'll continue, it's all about, in the beginning, it's all about botching stuff up a little bit and just moving on. So as we start to uncover that likeness, we will hold on a minute. Are we live? Yes, we're live. Let's see. So you see the likeness coming through. By the way, as I said earlier, we can get in here and start to carve out we know what color we're dealing with here on the upper lip, right? It's just varying shades of this rich red. And sometimes it's in shadow and sometimes it's in light. Sometimes this is definitely in shadow. That little area there. Got to make sure we pay lip service at least to our corner of the mouth. And here's our brightest bright, not our brightest bright, but there's our middle value on the lip. And I noticed, actually, I hate to be sort of a know-it-all, but I did notice that things were photoshopped around the lips, particularly just the color of the lip. You can see when you zoom in there that they really had to find that edge of the lip and make things more symmetrical because, as they say, I think that's like kind of the misconception, and it's like, that's what beauty is. It's when their faces are symmetrical, and I'm kind of like, it's a little scary when something's that symmetrical. I don't know. To each their own, but it's just, you can see that it's not. Anyway, I don't know. You can see what they did here with the edge of the lip. Like, let's get a perfect, and they did it. Good work. I kind of like the imperfections, the kind of off-centeredness. That stuff's interesting to paint because you're not dragged into the mud, kind of. You're just the off-balance stuff is like easier in a way to paint because the other stuff has to be so, when it's a perfect symmetrical thing, there's no room for error. You can't hide. All right. Again, I'm going to keep harping away about makeup, but under natural light, without makeup, you would see much more variety in the shadow edge. I'm sorry, in the light edge. You would see, oh, well, this is, a half tone. But now it's like, okay, there's highlight, and then it's like the whole face is highlight. Okay, so where were we? Speaking of highlights, we want to I don't know, is this? It's good that we can at least get to this zoom level. There we go. Inside of corner of eye. A lot of helicopter activity outside today. All right, as we're coming in toward the we're coming in toward the end of hour 1. My main goal here is to get the likeness going with the face. And by the way, I think part of the production of this photo shoot is it makes for an impactful pose and everything, but I get the sense that like, for instance, I noticed that when they were doing the cloning stamp on Kitty Cat's whiskers, we'll discuss that later, but there's just so much post-production going on in these photos that you can't help but think, you can't help but sort of want for a little bit more naturalism. And I think we'll find that in the hair and everything, but I don't know. I think that's why I'm starting with the head here, is just to keep things broad. And in the past, what I've done is I've finished the head and then moved on to another area. But since this time lapse is ultimately just going to have one zoom, one, what's the word? One area of focus. I'm not going to be moving around to different, the time lapse will just be this 16 by 9. And so I think I need to move around with what I'm working on more than I normally would. Because basically what I've found with the time lapse is if somebody is watching and I render, like if I do a first pass on the face, audience retention drops off a cliff when I do the first pass of the face. And I think that's because they're like, oh, that's it, like the head looks done, so I know what it is. But if you leave it a little bit unfinished, and just sort of do core features and like here, we're just gonna you'll see what I mean. When I'm gonna decide to move on to another area quite soon. And you'll see what I mean by if I leave it at a certain level of focus. Anyway, I'm babbling here. I'm trying to decide myself when I should stop. But I want to just make sure I remember that I'm trying to stop. And I'm not trying to get a finished statement on the head here. Oh boy. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. I believe every day's a good day when you paint. So it's hard. It's not easy, but it's not easy to know when to stop and when to move on and all that. But we're gonna try. Okay, so you can see the head starting to come into play here. It's kind of cool. I don't know. I like it. And again, shadows, bleeding from light into shadow. All of this is very we really must be looking hard for a perpetrator out there, because I'm hearing for the last hour a lot of commotion from a helicopter. All right, let's find out. Every day's a good day when you paint. I believe it'll bring a good. It'll bring a lot of good things to you. Let's paint some happy little trees. Okay. Oh boy. Okie dokie. And where are we? Where are we now? That'll be another one. Maybe a Justin Bieber. There's a lot of things to think about here. You got Billie Eilish, the whole contemporary crew. Get top of the lip. I mean, lower lip. Moving on over. Yeah, we can fix that later. I didn't quite grab what I needed there. Okay. Hey, ow. I'm getting into some bad posture habits here. Sorry for the scream. Let's get our highlight under the lip here. And then our highlights, always a challenge for me, are the highlights over the lips. Why not? Pop them in while we have them, while we see them. Why not? Grab this one. And get a darkest dark to stream through here. Sorry. Okay. Some real cool temperature wise, but the expression here is cool too. But I'm talking about how the head, like at some point I'm just going to leave the head as it is, and you tell me if you think you're ready to move on to the next session, the next section, because I want it to be recognizable but unfinished. So we go. Carving away. Slightly darker. Slightly lighter. Okay. Now, if we zoom to our kind of postage stamp size, which what I would guess is for you guys it's postage stamp, but for me it's a bit bigger. You know what I'm saying about this, the makeup stuff? Like, you're not really getting, I don't know, you're not, it's hard to see where the edge of the nose is because they really get rid of a lot of the colors and idiosyncratic shifts of tone that happen on a face. And they really clean a lot of that up. And, but it's not, it's not often you get to get a larger resolution photo of a celeb that doesn't have some kind of production going on, so. And oh my. That's kind of cool, right? Like I might leave it like that for now and just hit the shadow edge under the chin. Okay, let's do something like that. Do we want kitty cat yet? Maybe. But I think before we do that, I'd like to get moving on the arms and so forth. Some of that anatomy moving in here. Whoops. Okay. Lower arm there. Oh, did I lose that? That's funny. Yeah, it's all going through here, same spot. Grab that. Let's pop in a Leor Max. Is there any reason why you left those empty spots in the face? Great questions. Thank you for the chat, and I appreciate it. There is a reason. There's a couple of reasons, and I think you summed it up with your comment, and I appreciate you popping in for is this the first time at the channel here? Yes. Thank you. So, oh wow, I can already see this drawing will look amazing once complete. Is there any reason why you left those empty spots in the face? Yes, great questions. Thank you for saving me from my sort of boredom here. There is. So, for one thing, there's kind of a commercial aspect. There's an answer to that question, which is not artistic. Okay, so, and that answer is, I do a time-lapse photo. If you go to my Instagram or my YouTube, anywhere I don't have, I do time-lapses of these portraits. So I invite you to check that out. And the reason the time-lapse is important or at least those spots on the face, I was just talking about it before you arrived. I didn't want to finish the head entirely because I want people to say exactly what you just said. It looks like it's going to come out well, but I better stick around to watch the full 12-second time lapse because the head's not done. Okay, so I'm moving on to other parts of the figure here. And eventually, the last step will be to return to the head and get that in like polished focus. So yeah, that's kind of the commercial answer for it. But even if I was not painting for a time lapse and hoping for whatever views on my Instagram reels, I would. So the idea, sorry. So, I totally get it. Leor Max. So the idea is to make a time lapse that shows the development of the entire piece and not of specific places. Yes, Leor Max, that's another great point, and that relates to how my time lapses work. Cinnabon Boy, TikTok, it's all about the talk for me. I really think it's crucial that the time lapse, because the time lapse is like the gateway drug. You see the time lapse and you say, "Oh, cool, that's a cool painting," and then hopefully somebody will click on to the full Monty, the whole long form video. And come hang out and talk about art and be silly. But so Leor Max. So the idea is to make a time lapse that shows the development of the entire piece and not of specific places. Yes, because in this case, like if you look at my Mr. Rogers or my Bob Ross time-lapse video, you see that I was able to zoom in on different parts of those. I could have done that here too, where like, okay, the time-lapse shows like the cat's face, but because the cat's head is so close to Taylor's head, I'm not going to be cutting the time-lapse into different sections. I'm just going to do a 12-second boom, the whole thing appears. And that, as I was starting to say, that kind of relates to what I was saying about how your comment, how normally, even if I wasn't painting toward a time lapse, I would want the whole thing to be. I often want the whole piece to be moving along equally. Like, I don't want anything to fall too far behind. And the reason that is because the way I paint is actually to observe, I'm not a photorealist in the sense that I know exactly what it needs to look like. I figure that out usually as I go. And because if you've ever tried to paint in a realistic way without like a grid system or anything like that, I'm trying to compare the two from one to the other. And right now, the farthest thing behind is the body or anything that's gray, like I don't have any information down there. So I want to put that information there quickly. And then once that information is down, I can then compare and see where did I go wrong? In other words, so anyway, I think you'll see more about that. If you hang around, I'll talk more about sight size and why I paint in that way. But sight size is basically the fundamental driving force behind how I paint and why I paint this way. But it's adapted for the TikTok feed somewhat because I'm learning as I see my time lapses. I'm learning about how to keep the attention span going, especially since because I'm painting digitally, the time lapses aren't all that interesting. I understand. So it also helps with finding possible errors during the initial sketch. Well, no, it also helps with exactly. It helps with just developing, like to know if you have essentially, if like this, I'm not really going to be able to finish the face until I have the darks of the hair surrounding, because then my eye can pass over the gray, what was gray. If I'm looking at it as a gray background, I'm like, oh, that's gray, that's gray. My eye is drawn to that error. And if I plop in the brown, like, look here, I'll just squint and I'll say, okay, where's this darkest dark on the edge of the face? It's probably around here. I mean, I know it's there, so I grab that color and then I just plop it in. Okay. And then here's my brown for the hair. Okay. If I fill in very roughly the browns around her face, then I'll be able to, the whole thing has to be going along at the same pace so that I'm not stuck, because I'm just not the kind of painter that goes in and goes painstakingly get every little hair. I've done that and I can do it, but I'm trying to keep this thing painterly and brushy, and that's where the broader focus and keeping the whole thing moving. So yeah, you're onto it. You're saying you've raised another issue. You've raised another reason why I do things the way I do, and I think you get it. You're understanding, and yeah, I'm not going to be going in and finishing up one area because I kind of want that broad focus, more like a 17th century thing. Because that's like how I learned to paint, was just watching old masters and a teacher who was very much like into the 17th century. And I would say I am as well. Like I was taught to appreciate that style in a way that is maybe more meaningful than some of the like photorealism, which was attractive to me in the beginning of my art journey. I was into like photorealism and Dali, but my teacher very quickly taught me. So I see. Thanks for the insight. Absolutely. Thanks for the great question. And if you have any other things you want to say, hey, what the heck are you doing? Please do. I like to talk about the styles. Sometimes it's hard for me without like getting drawings out and, I don't know, like while I'm painting, sometimes it's hard to give the best explanation, but over time, if you come back and see other ones, you'll see what I mean. Yeah, thank you. Leor Max, are you an artist, a painter? Do you stream your artwork? Or are you just a Swiftie? Or both? Okay, you appreciate art. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and sometimes I'm a programmer who enjoys watching people create. Awesome. Yeah, I've done some coding things in my time. And I often say that quite a bit now. I can't remember exactly when I started, maybe May I was doing streaming some video game speed runs, and then I was like, you know what, I could do some art streams here, and that's what I have been focusing on since starting to do that. I try to do a session every day, if I can. All right, so here I am. I'm grabbing colors from the photo just so that I get like my basic colors. What was I going to say about programming? Yeah, I found that when I was learning how to, I kind of taught myself like CSS and HTML web design in like the late 2000s. And that to me was sort of it was very much like a video game to me, and very much like painting in a lot of ways, because you could quickly, if you have good eye for detail, you can scan things and sort of say like, oh, there's my, tag, there's my href tag or whatever. You can, I found I could use my eye for detail to like quickly copy and paste code and search for bugs, maybe not too quickly, but so I think there's like a big overlap between having the patience for this kind of drawing and computer programming. It's like you need a lot of patience and you need to have an eye for detail. But it depends. Yeah, I mean, I guess I've never really programmed apps or anything like that, but the simple things that I have done were a lot like that for me. They scratched the same itches that, that art does for me. Okay, here's a good example. I now need to, I can't just blast in where, oh yeah, eye for detail is surely useful. Most mistakes are generated by people not noticing the simplest mistakes. Yeah. And then not to mention, when you do like debug something and you hit reload on your browser or whatever, if you're doing a website, it's like, it's the feeling of trying to defeat an enemy in a video game over and over again. And then suddenly you're like, yes, it's like that kind of release. That I think painting doesn't really have. It doesn't have that sort of sudden. Painting is like a slow process that unfolds, almost too slow. So here we're going to try to close up shop down here and then move on to the kitty cat, if we can. Yeah, so I think it's just sort of like it's a few things that are causing what you're seeing here about where I'm painting and, when and why. I think it's like another element to it is making it rhythmical. Because if you're just chaotically jumping around from place to place, gaming and programming both use the same problem-solving skills. Yeah, definitely. I love that, and I loved. I think I didn't do it anymore because I was like, the language that I had to learn PHP at the time, I guess it was, or like JavaScript, and if I wanted to move on as a programmer and like do bigger jobs and grow, I had to learn a new language. And I was afraid that, well, when does that end? I'm going to just have to keep learning the new languages over and over. And it never ends. And like, I think around that time I was like, why don't I go back to my trusty language of oil painting, which never changes. It's like it never ends. There's always a new one. And there's always, the same is true for painting, but the language of oil paint doesn't change. Like, yeah, I'm already sort of bored of some of the things I've done with oil painting. And so now I'm like, let's try this digital thing. And, I'm learning all the time. And so, but I guess it's not entirely like the language of oil painting changes as you develop as a painter, for sure. You don't stagnate necessarily. But I just think it's a little more obvious that the fact that programming languages need to be, you always need to be brushing up and reading on the latest thing. And if that language won't do what you need it to do, then you have to find another language. So I admire it. I just, I guess at a certain point I just felt like, the other thing is too, is that the languages relate to one another. Like I never learned PHP and I never learned JavaScript because I was afraid that process would be like so unlike HTML, which I felt so comfortable in. I was afraid to come out of that comfort zone. And I don't think I needed to be afraid because correct me if I'm wrong, but there's similarities between all these languages. And I was just like maybe unfairly afraid that the language wouldn't be the same. Okay, so why don't we do what we often do in oil painting? Well, hang on. This is this phenomenon that happens with digital photography where you have, I think it's kind of part of the photo here, intentional, but you see the digital, what's it called? Feedback. Or I had an artist friend who was really into that stuff, and he'd make his artwork all about how light refracts in weird ways when you're... As a programmer, the way I see it, learning a language is like learning an art tool. You might need some time to adjust to the new tool, but if you already know the basics like anatomy, lighting, composition, you can always learn the new one in a short time. Yes, it's like the pathways, the neural pathways are like there. It's like another analogy might be that I've found really interesting is like I learned how to play the drums as a kid, but not really well. I was like lazy and I just wanted to play drums with a band and not pay attention to how bad of a drummer I was. And then I learned to be a better drummer. I knew I had to learn how to be a better drummer, but it was at a time in my life where I didn't have access to a drum set. So I just learned how to keep time better with a guitar. And then when I went to go play guitar, when I went to go play the drums, I was a better drummer. And it's like I owe it to the neural pathway. Like I learned how to count and stay in time with a different instrument, but my left foot was able to keep time suddenly, even though I was never practicing with it. Your brain has been practicing, and that's maybe analogous. All right, do we really need to have that? Like, I don't know. I like that element of the tights, the way the ripple of light there is kind of cool. So it's going to be hard, but we'll Figure it out. All right, I'm doing what I said I was not going to do. I'm cheating. I'm grabbing tons of colors from the photo right now. I don't need to, but I am, because especially when I'm enjoying a bit of chat and trying to get things moving. Okay, so Blue-Eyed Kitty probably needs to be next. But what I'm going to do is hit the hand, get that moving. Okay, so why the hand? Well, it's hard work. When presented with something new, your brain always tries to relate it to things you've already learned. Yeah. Or if you don't have, if the brain can't latch onto the old, it's like another way of saying what you just said, which is like if you can't rely on your old ways, you just, I think about like people who have like some kind of, different ability, or loses their sight, and their brain can still finds other ways to see. All right, so here we've got a value shift. Look at how dark the background is here. This is kind of fun. Here's an example where by putting in the known quantity there, which happens to be the color of the background, then we're able to move on. Like, take a look. Whoops. I usually don't. So yeah, by putting in the background, we don't need to put in the whole background necessarily, but we can, by chopping in the basic tone of the background around the hand, then it frees us up to be able to see the thing. Like, I don't want to just randomly start painting the hand in a vacuum. I want to make sure I know. Oh, look what I did here. Sometimes I make these kinds of mistakes where I forget to plop in my underdrawing here. So something like that, where you get your darkest dark. Whoops, not like that. Yeah. So let's get nice background color here. Look at this. We'll just hit our... And oil painting, to the point that we were just talking about, I want to at some point get into the oil painting studio with the stream. And I want to share some of how I do that process. What I find interesting about it all is what I'm learning from digital painting. I believe that I'm going to be a better oil painter when I do get back to it. And I want to, that's sort of like part of this experiment, is to find out if I can learn things about oil painting that I haven't, by practicing my digital painting. I think after a long weekend too, I tend to need some time to just knock the dust off, the rust. Okay. So, and what kind of programming language, like, give me a breakdown of what sorts of problems you're solving as a programmer. is it like web design or like back end? I know a little bit about it, but just generally speaking. Okay. Nice dark here. And by the way, if you're new to the channel, I will just say you can see the oil painting stuff that I'm talking about is on my Instagram. And that's maybe interesting to see. Like what I often find, and I talk about this a lot, the mistakes I make in oil painting, which when I look at an old oil painting, I'm like, ugh, I wish I didn't do it like that, or I wish I'd handled this better. The same thing happens with digital painting. It's not like in any way makes me a better. The things that I make mistakes with, or what I consider mistakes, are the same across digital and oil, which is just kind of noteworthy. Okay, well, here we go. Look, there's very little highlight here in our, this is like a paradise for me where I would just say, all right, cool. Now, do you like just coloring stuff in? Because come with me on a coloring in bonanza. Okay. Just get the boundaries there. Satisfactorily. And I mean, that's even not so. Okay, so grab a color. Grab a color, or any color, and just, it's the darkest dark. You'll see that I'm not scrabbling, even though I wanted to fill that area in, because I like how it shows up on the time lapse a little more when it's stroke by stroke. If you scribble, the time lapse doesn't pick it up, because it only does one stroke when you let go. And even then, if you're too close to the pad, it won't show up. So, there we go. We're filling in things quick. Moving out. Roll out. Okay. Yeah, basically I want it to look like Taylor right at this stage, so that people are like, I know who that is, but he didn't finish yet, you know, like, so that they keep watching. So yeah, that's kind of, your initial question has a very simple answer, but it also is kind of fun to leave those little holes in there sometimes. Like, I like the way it looks a little bit. But as we've talked about also on this stream, even though I like the way it looks, I often end up being too scared to leave it that way. Okay. Dark as darks. Nice, nice. All right, there we go. We can continue our oil painting, digital oil painting exploration. Quite an interesting pose here for the hand, if you ask me. There's a tension there, maybe. I don't know. Okay. There's our highlight. There's our... Yep. We can leave that like that. We can plop in like a... Whoops, that wasn't good. So find the highlight on the knuckle here. Come on. Highlights elsewhere, but let's just find out the big ones for now. There's a major highlight, and then we'll plow through here. Okay. What else? I'm just flicking my eye back and forth and thinking, what do we do here? Where do we go? Let's find the shape of the head. So often the hair is the likeness. This doesn't really look like Taylor because that's not really how I'm used to seeing her hair. That's more the kind of artistic license of the photographer, I would say. Here, let's get this. What's the name of this cat? Can anybody help me out here? Not urgent, but it might be nice to know. We'll call her Fufu. And then look at this dark here. The eyelash line on the kitty is even more dark than the iris, than the lens. What is that, the lens? Yep, there we go. Whoa, did not mean to do that. Okay, so we're at about the 2-hour mark on our stream. And today, coming back from a long weekend, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to do too much more than the 3 hours, which I rarely do anyway, but I might need to take a little break in a second. Okay. Now, let's do the head here of the cat. Nice cloudy blue eyes. I'll get in here a little tighter here. Meowmers. There's a greeny. Yeah, so sometimes if you're like moving in here on the eyes, I might want to zoom in a bit more. Yeah, because another thing that happens at the end of the weekend is the work emails start to come on in. So gotta get back to the grind a little bit. Okay. How about eyelashes? So, not eyelashes, but would these be considered the eyebrows of this cat? Probably. Okay, well. All right. We're starting to see some shapes taking hold. Really carve through here. And pasting, almost laying down this nice white swath here. And you can see where I really leaned into the underdrawing. Okay. Now. Again, the old nostril shuffle. It goes all the way over here. Okay. Now zooming out, we'll start to see a bit more Here's the darkest dark of the brown fur. And now this time I'll be damned if I don't have a raid at the end of this. We gotta raid somebody, you know? Any suggestions for who we want to raid? Because I'm like this in real life art too. I don't do a lot of art viewing. I don't go to a lot of, exhibitions, or I've never even had an exhibition of my own work. And, I don't go to, maybe I have at a cafe once, but not like anything more than just like, oh, you want to put some paintings up? So I don't go to see artwork, and I have not even looked at, I've looked at a couple of artists online who are in the chat family here. And that's been great. So maybe somebody in the chat family, if they're live, but I don't know people's schedules either, so we're just going to keep our eyes open when it comes time to... The main thing is remember that we're doing a raid, because I forget. Yeah. Meow. 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 All right, bear with me a minute. I'm going to take a quick break. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to hang out for a bit. Well, I'll be right back. Nope. BRB. We did this the last time with our... Oh, no, we can't. No, I'm not going to take a break. I gotta keep powering through. We got 1 hour left. Let's do it. Here's an example of, a little bit of where the background is actually lighter than my canvas color. All right. Did anyone happen to notice the double whiskers here? And don't tell me that's that cat's whiskers, because it ain't. That's another cat pose that they just plop the head. They clone stamped the head. But it passes. It's better clone stamping than I probably would do. That's why I don't clone stamp, because I take way too long to clone stamp stuff. I tried to do it with the head, with the hair here, and get rid of the, whatever it was, Vogue or Time magazine. And I just said, you know what, forget it. Don't try too hard, because you're going to get rid of valuable information, and it's going to take 4 hours if you do that. Okay. So here we are. A dark accent here in the hair, maybe? Okay. Now I'm just sort of skipping around to fill in blanks that I feel like need to be filled in. Like, what about kitty cat, the edge of this tail here? Let's see here. Shadows falling. See the hair from the cat spilling out over into the background. We got to think about all that. Here, look at. Now, did we do the cat's mouth sufficiently? No. I'm really jumping around. I think that makes the time lapse a little more interesting, especially when you're not able to zoom in on certain areas. So that's kind of where I land with that. Now, meow. Meow. What do we think? Probably a Persian cat, no? Maine Coon. Not sure. Perhaps it's a rescue. Okay. Let's finish up our mission here on the... Whoop! See, we don't want to make her... Got to keep the linear quality here. Find some of this shadow. Highlight. Okay. So, what else can we do here? Let me just see here what's happening here. Am I right? Oh, sorry, Leor Max. Thank you for the follow. I didn't mention that, but thank you so much. I did not notice. And thank you also for the discussion. Whoops. Nope, not that. Now, okay. Let's get Kitty surrounded here. We got you surrounded. Well, first of all, let's get our highlight for the hair here. Get that. And then we'll make sure we... Now, I went this past weekend on a really extraordinary adventure. It's not the first time I've been on this adventure, but I went into the depths of the earth at Howe Caverns. Anyone ever been into a cave or a cavern? That was exciting. It's up, I forget the name of the town, but definitely way upstate New York. And highly recommend the trip if you haven't been. We had a party of 13 in there. My wife's family, essentially, everybody got down into ranging from age 5 to 75. And we all lived to tell about it. I noticed they have a Halloween thing. They have like a spooky season. We didn't do that, but maybe next year. All right, so we're finding the edges. Lost and found edges. Not really. We're just doing glorified paint by numbers again. Whoops. So, let's get our to include everyone. If you didn't get the right color for the eyes, I even think this is a weird thing, but I think it's a different photo shoot. Who knows? I really think they shot Kitty Cat separately somewhere. Or at least the final headshot is different because look at the highlights in the eyes. They're not the same. Who knows? I mean, if you ever look at the cover of Cat Fancy magazine, I don't know if you're like me, you have a couple of Cat Fancy centerfolds around. And if you look closely at the eyes on those cats, they literally have like just a square white highlight in the middle of the eye. And it's totally fake. It's just, let's really ping that highlight as high as we can and make the edge square so that anybody looking at the cover is just immediately mesmerized and brought in. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll review some Cat Fancy back issues. That could be a whole 3-hour session in and of itself. All right. Cat Fancy. Cat Fancy. My buddy, wherever I go, he goes. My buddy, my buddy, my buddy and me. Kid Sister sold separately. Oh, well, starting to get hungry. my body, wherever I go, he goes. My body, my body. My body is... City bike, city bike. Okie dokie. So if we zoom out, we can see we got kitty cat finding their way. There's probably a good reason to lay in these highlights along this torso here. So let's try that for a bit. There's a nice light that carves in here. And it looks light, right? Nice light that goes there. We can get that sort of rhythmical what's this darkest dark here? No, I don't think I did that quite right. Let's get that kind of anatomical indicator there. Okay. I think I can. Yeah, something like that. Did I have the right color? I don't think I had the right color. But whatever. Got to move on. We'll come back to it if we need to. Okie dokie. There's a dark edge. So 12:23, we've got 45 minutes. We'll be wrapping things up. How about a little pause? 1, 2, 3. Meow, meow, meow. Did I get that right? Or was it meow? Meow, meow. It helps if you make little mental maps of where these brush strokes are supposed to go. Gosh. Kitty cat, kitty cat. Okay. And we're definitely going to need to review I don't know. We're going to review everything. So let's look back. Okay. Oh boy. No. Don't know what that was, but it's not correct. There's some fuzzy tail feathers. We will then try to hit the hand. No, not like that. Not like this. It's just lunchtime, that's all. After lunchtime. Didn't realize I'm going to discuss. Oh, okay. Yeah. We're learning. I'm getting some texts from my baseball chat. Very exciting postseason. I don't know if anyone's watching it, but it's always, at least maybe it's always exciting, but I haven't been watching baseball for years, and I'm riveted. Okay. There's the eyes. Now, how on earth are we going to figure this part out? First, I'm going to steal our light value. Oh, come on. It's just a little gratuitous. Okay, we got a highlight. Then we grab our darkest darks to surround. My buddy. All right, so interesting hairstyle here, I think. It definitely makes for a... See what I'm doing here? I'm basically just rounding out the edges here. I'm finding our darkest darks and doing the... Like here. There's our... Where's our darkest dark value? Like that. Something like that. And we're in in there. And then, yep, we can find our edge. Find our edge. Literally and figuratively, because you start to go a little nutty. At the end of a painting session, you say, have I hit my limit? I don't know. Man. Okay. Maybe I'll new blonde highlights here, blonde middle values. We got blonde, blonde on blonde. Okay. Stretch. Let's take a highlight here and bring it up there, the leg, the kitty. And then we'll find our, again, more there's kitty cat. I thought we were going to do some more like movie characters, to be honest. But when I stumbled upon this trove of People magazine covers, People? Time. That's when I decided, let's do those. And then my niece was like, I was like, who should I do next? Taylor Swift. So I was like, okay. You got it. Coming up. Let's get that kitty painted. Has anyone ever seen I believe what they're called is like, I'm not going to remember the name, darn it. They're like Storytime HBO. Shoot, let me get in here. Look. I know. Cheating. It's white. It's called like, I can't even remember. They basically take children's books and they make musicals out of them. Anyway, it's an HBO thing from the early 90s, maybe. No, Well, I ask because I don't know why I asked. There's a couple of episodes that are pretty good, especially if you have children. They're fun. It's a fun way to like bring a book that you might have in your collection to life, and they write songs that are memorable and all that. Okay, so what's going on here is I'm seeing the kind of coming together here of Kitty Cat and Taylor. I think that's the implication is that they kind of have a feral, energetic quality, perhaps, and they're trying to accentuate that maybe with. But at the same time, there's a sense of maybe wisdom here that. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not really into the Taylor lore as much as I should be. I don't know what her stance is on cat people, but that's another scary movie. Was it called Cat People? The soundtrack was written by Giorgio Moroder. Is that how you pronounce it? Did the Scarface one. I don't love the soundtrack quite as much as I do the Scarface soundtrack is unbelievable. Unbelievably good. Take it to the limits. Or no, push it to the limit. Push it to the limit. Past the point of no return. Reach the top, but still you've got to learn how to keep it. Take it to the limit. It might be take it to the limits at certain points. Okay, Kitty Cat, top of head, coming into focus. And YouTube's. Okay. So, here we go again. I'll take a little bit of this shadow edge. Call in progress. So please, we have a British accent on our mailbox, our door opener thingy. All right, let's go. Shoot. Come over the edge there, you can't. Come on, T Swift, right? Yikes. All right, so as we discussed previously, I'm going to start to really just plow into the areas that are not developed at all. So like, for instance, I'll grab my dark brush and then just come on down the edge here. You can start to build very easy this particular passage because it's all one color more or less. I don't know, I didn't look too closely at details there, but perhaps the thing to do, probably that hand is not going to be, now that I'm looking at how I framed this thing, that hand won't get a lot of airtime. But we can at least I don't know, what can we do? We can at least paint it properly. I just don't know when to paint it properly, because I don't think it's going to be seen very well. And okie doke. Moving along, we've got some nice highlights here. Let's get those to sort of bridge the gap here. Let's see if we can do this. So there's a kind of a nice, whoa, come on, that's not even cool. Kitty cat, kitty cat. It's like down here somewhere. Oh well. We'll have to get in there with the dark and see. Yeah, we'll make that up another time. Okay, so did anyone out there make it to the Eras tour? Please chime in with an anecdote if you did. Okay, so here we go. It's kind of one of those things, it's like like what was the big Madonna tour? Like, if you can't, it just would be nice to sort of check that box and say, yeah, I went to the Eras tour. Because it's that level of cultural phenomenon. The kids are into it. Nice. Okay, let's get some highlights coming into play here. And I don't know where all my darks were supposed to be, but I know that's where my lights are. now. Do-do-do-dee. Yada-da-da-dee. And so basically, if you haven't figured it out by now, we're just filling in the blanks, going for places we haven't been, and eventually, I don't know, you think we can do this one in 3 sessions? I don't know. Maybe. Okay, we got about 20 minutes at least on the clock, and 20 minutes remaining. There she blows. We start to see a bit more of the hair. We will there's kind of a crisp highlight there that I can see on the torso that we want to get that in there. We might have to do some additional work later. I don't know. Because I've lost already the highlights there, I think. Really kind of get into this zone here where there's a relaxation quality, but there's a focus, and we're just trying to keep on moving while we have time. So, let's get some highlights here. We've done enough shadows. Let's grab some highlights. So one. Not quite the right color there, but not a problem. There we go. I knew this would be a problem around here. Lots of hair. Look at the highlights on the hair here. It's almost like a pattern that falls across here. Another splash of highlight around here. Very nice. Very good. There's our beginning to take shape. Take this edge on the right. Now, was that? I wasn't paying much attention when I just did that. I gotta grab this. Oh my God. Now, not the easiest work here. Tomorrow really things will get, I think, more interesting. At least as far as I don't know what the likeness will come into play, and we'll see less of that, the patchiness. Okay. Now, let's get that correct here. Well, we can fix that later, I guess. I think what I should do is probably take this highlight and then place it. Something like that. Hit this darkest dark. I lost that. I lost that battle. It's okay. We're going to keep it looking brushy. Extra edge. Okay. What else do we got? There's really darks here that need to be addressed. Hey, It's me. I'm the armpit, it's me. Okay, let's keep going. Fill that in. Yeah, I like that. Here. Let's get a highlight going down here so we at least see. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. Let's play the feud. Well, I had the opportunity to sit by a fire or watch Jumanji this weekend, and I chose to sit by the fire, but I think I might want to revisit Jumanji. Who directed that? I don't know. I think it looked very Spielberg when I saw the first opening stuff. I am a one tired individual. I was up driving too late. About to fall asleep here. Anybody recognize that bird call? Guess my bird calls. Okay. We got 10. Let's splash some highlights over here. Nice highlights along the edge. I think we're probably at the same value there. Close enough. Yeah, we'll get down in here. So we just want to get a little more of the thigh here. Try and get some of this moving up and around. I don't know exactly where all this stuff begins and ends, but we're just kind of guessing. Look, there's a nice highlight here on the hip bone. The hip bone's connected to the... Okay, so if we find it, don't lose it. See this sort of rippling effect on the tights is something that's should be easy to do, but somehow it's elusive because you have to know exactly where everything sits. We can observe that a little more closely next time. Let's get our highlight on, our shadow edge down here. Nice way to separate the background. Google Alerts. Ow. I think I'm gonna. And very shortly we should be coming in for a landing. We have not. Let's get this. Our last little bit here. Why not? Why not just get the anatomy straightened out? Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Let's find out. See what I did? I didn't separate entirely, but it's okay. Okay. It's me. Hi, I'm the kitty. It's me. We just keep plugging along. And soon yeah, we'll figure all those highlights out. They don't need all that stuff now, do we? I don't think so. There, we'll get a little highlight on the arm there. That's fine. And we'll hit our edges here. And then tomorrow, we'll dive back in and we'll have a little bit more of a comfortable. I mean, it's going to get hard tomorrow. Let's put it that way. It's going to be. Let's not mistake ourselves. We've got a lot of hard work to do after the initial paint by numbers. But it's going to be fun, right? We can do it. Let's see what we can do. What time is it? What time is it? We've got 2 minutes. So what do you think? Should we do a small time lapse? No. Let's just finish the time lapse tomorrow. Or, I mean, let's just do what we got to do. And do the whole time lapse thingy. Okay, let's see. Whoops, what's that? It's me. Hi. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't leave myself a lot of information there, but we'll try it another time. At least this. That's going to be hard. Okay, what do we think? Time lapse today based on what we've got so far, or no? You tell me. You be the judge of that. Or should we just wait till our whole painting is done? I might lose this silky whatever this pattern is here because all right, I think that's our 3-hour mark here. Just when things were starting to heat up. All right. So, without further ado, what's that look like? Yeah, no, I don't like that. Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow and polish things up. If you're new to the channel, we've got, check out the Instagram. We do time-lapse paintings. We'll spend a long time working on one painting, maybe 9, 12, sometimes 20 hours. And then we squeeze them all into a time-lapse. And it's fun, I think. So give a follow or, just come back. I'm not going to forget this time. We're doing a raid. So if anyone out there knows an art channel that's live right now, please tell me. I'm going to raid them. And Okay. That's not so bad. The old thigh bone, whatever. All right. So let's do this. First of all, we're going to do our Swift V1. Okay. And then we're going to do a raid. How do we do that? So we go /raid. No? We go, wait. Oh, goodness, guys. Goodness gracious. Here, this is how we do it. Don't leave me. Please don't leave us. We've got I'm going to mute the mic, and we will thank you so much for hanging out. I'm going to mute us here, and then we'll see you tomorrow.